When the weather's nice, we love playing outdoor games. This season, we wanted to add a new one to our collection.
So we dreamed up this vertical maze and got started making. We looked for inspiration online to see what other folks have made and found a wide variety of designs. We were really impressed with this collection of farm-themed mazes.
This one totally reminded me of my favorite classic arcade game, Dig Dug.
And when Chinlu said that, it reminded me of my favorite, Mr. Do.
They both have awesome retro graphics and great maze-like qualities, so all we had to do was decide on which one to make. Of course, we couldn't make up our minds, so we made both.
We first had to decide on a scale for the build, and we knew that the ball that we chose would have a big impact on it. We thought that a billiard cue ball would be perfect, especially because it looks so much like Mr. Do's ball. We used the ball's 2¼ inch diameter to establish a unit square for the design, and then patterned it to establish the game board. Creating the maze was a matter of deciding where different elements would go, and then deleting the squares we didn't need. Although we were tempted to cut this with a CNC router, we opted to handcraft it instead. We do love the precision and speed of CNC, but we also love the process of laying out a design and then using hand tools to make the pieces. A design like this can easily be made with a few basic tools. After we drilled pilot holes in the 1/2 inch plywood and jigsawed out all of the openings, we used an 1/8 inch roundover bit to soften all of the edges.
Now we can start the fun step of painting everything. We primed the surfaces first and then used acrylic paint to bring the games to life. We used images we found online as reference for the base colors, but we needed to do a bit more work to get the finer details in place. To add the pixelated effect to the Dig Dug screen, we cut a stencil on our Cricut and stipple painted over each little dot. To get the brick pattern and cherries on the Mr. Do screen, we experimented with using 3D prints as stamps. It took a few tries to get the right amount of paint onto the stamp, but we finally figured out the right technique. A viewer suggested we use a brayer to get an even coat, and it worked out great.
We really got to geek out when we made these 3D printed characters. It was a blast to recreate this iconic pixel art. We used Xdesign to make the 16 by 16 characters within that 2¼ inch unit square. Similar to how we modeled the game board, we first built one square and then patterned it. Then we used the instances to skip behavior to remove all the pixels we didn't need. Over in Bamboo Studio, we added color to each pixel face to match the character design. Printing the colors face down creates this really cool effect.
We used super glue to attach the characters to the board. They're printed 1/4 inch thick to act as obstacles in the maze. My favorite piece is the dragon with the flames. I'm forever impressed with the level of detail pixel artists can create. We added scores and levels by cutting out and applying some vinyl. The playing field is surrounded by a simple frame with an extended shelf on the bottom. To get a nice contrast, we decided to make them out of a maple veneered plywood. We ripped them to width at the table saw and cut them to length at the miter saw. Each side has a groove to receive the playing field. To make it, we raised the blade to 1/4 inch and made a series of passes to widen the groove and creep up on the perfect fit. To dress up the plywood faces of the frames, we added maple edge banding. So I would iron on the strips and I would trim the excess and burnish the edges. We made a short video about this process, so check it out if you want to learn more.
We made these simple legs to elevate the game board to a comfortable height. The shape is super simple, but it helped to jump into SOLIDWORKS and quickly model it up. We wanted to verify that we can make 6 copies of the same sized piece and use it in both the inclined and horizontal positions. While we were at it, we designed these upright pieces that could hold a sign across the top and be used to mount other games to the side, like our Ring the Hook game we made last year. To get consistent results on the semicircular ends, we modeled and 3D printed the simple template. We used it to first draw the arcs so we could then remove the bulk of the plywood with a jigsaw. Then we clamped it in place again and used it to precisely route the contour using a patterning bit. Before removing the template, we marked the center point with an awl, so we could get repeatable results when we drilled holes for the bolts we'd use to hold everything together.
We chose pocket holes to hold the frame together because they're really simple to use and they create a strong connection when you point them in the right direction.
On a frame like this, it's tempting to put the pockets on the inside because they'll be hidden behind the game board. But that'll aim the screws towards a very small amount of material and create a weaker joint. By putting the holes on the outside, the screw points towards the bulk of the material and is much stronger.
We thought about adding a plywood back to the games, but remembered we had this salvaged piece of woven vinyl curtain we could use. We first painted the inside face black, then cut it to size. To attach it, we added hooks, grommets, and button snaps to the fabric and the frame.
With this done, we could start adding the rest of the hardware. We joined the 2 games back to back with a pair of hinges, and then hammered carriage bolts into the holes in the legs. The pieces are all held together with wing nuts, so everything can be quickly dismantled and stored away. At the top of each game, we attached 2 eye bolts for the strings to attach to the cradle.
This custom ball cradle turned out to be the hardest thing to design. We started with a half-moon cradle with 2 simple holes for the strings to attach. It failed on the first try with the cradle pivoting outward and dropping the ball. So we printed 2 adjustment pieces to add to the prototype. One was to complete the full circle of the cradle, giving it a flat surface to travel on, with added channels to raise the strings above the center of mass. The other piece changed the angle of the floor of the cradle.
These tweaks seemed to fix the issues with the ball falling out, but we still had an imbalanced design. So we added this small piece on the opposite side and got the center of mass well balanced. It also gave us an opportunity to have fun with a 3D print of a retro coin slot. For the handles, we wanted to make them look like arcade joysticks. We found some long black eye hooks that would be perfect stems and attached them to 1.5-inch wooden balls. Drilling a straight hole through a sphere can be very challenging and potentially dangerous. So we designed and printed this jig to hold the ball steady at the drill press.
Every stand-up arcade has an eye-catching sign up high so you can see it from a distance. So we decided to do the same. We wanted to capture the original art using our multicolored 3D prints. We modeled the shapes in X-Design as multi-bodies. We strategically split the different sections of the sign to make the seams less visible and accommodate the 4-color limit on our printer. This really completes the look.
This project took a ton of work, and we know it's a bit over the top, but we do hope it inspired you to dream up and make a fun backyard game of your own.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on our next make.